Hey there, welcome to CNT Collectibles MC. Hope you're doing well. This is your, should I say weekly sports card chart blast? Sorta. This is your sports card chart blast where we take a look at the price action of our favorite collectibles. Price is truth. Maybe we'll get into little fundamentals, but ultimately it's about the investor psychology. So we'll focus on that in chart form here. So the card ladder indices in order from biggest gainer to biggest faller. We are seeing hockey, vintage, and golf showing a little bit of positive action here. But way down at the bottom, you have the Culture 51, and I was kind of wondering what is that? And that's the card ladder index. What is their top 51 cards in the pop culture that they feel best represents the pop culture market today? And so that's an index type thing here. But ultra modern wrestling, and so you'd expect a lot of those names, the entertainment, the Pokemon, to kind of find their way into there. And then you have your card ladder 50 index, which is their representation of the most important cards. So you have the Mantles, the Trouts, and a lot of the vintages in there. So anyways, baseball is hanging in the best of the major sports. Soccer not too far behind, but basketball and football are having a little bit of trouble here. But there are opportunities, and we'll try and find those for you. So digging into the card ladder pop culture 51, culture 51 or whatever, one of the biggest gainers, the biggest gainer was Atom Bomb, the Garbage Pail Kid. The poster boy, the OG in the raw form, but CNT favorite C3PO in the PSA 8 is one of the heavy lifters in that index as well. And so anytime we have a chance to get him in here, we do just that. And what better way to he's one of the biggest gainers. I hesitate to say one of the biggest risers if you're familiar with that card, but here we are. So it's trending its highs here. So high price of $820, currently at $625, and so you can see on the longer term charts you get a better idea of the general direction, the general trend. But it also it can also skew the numbers a little bit. So here's your high. It doesn't like there's a decent a ton of movement off that one, but 820 to 675. That is a decent enough fall there, and so. That's one of the downfalls of pulling back and getting the big picture on things. So you don't get a sense of the magnitude of the drop. That's where you come into with the daily chart. So I think multiple time frames are important here. But anyways, 3PO challenging the highs, and we're seeing that in a lot of the Star Wars cards, so especially the vintage stuff here. So the pump continues here. Hockey, again, one of the sectors in the positive, and a lot of the cards that were helping that index or that particular market stay in the green were a lot of the vintage cards here. So we have Stevie Y, the OPG PSA 6 with a nice rip off the bottom of the range there. So if this is a card you're looking for, it's kind of your risk reward is not favorable or unfavorable or anything like that. But the price tag isn't anything that's hopefully too onerous or egregious or anything like that. So if you're looking for it, plenty of buying in this area. And have some fun. So Sergei Fedorov in the OPG 91, a little bit cheaper here. So the downtrend continues on this card here. So, but it's respecting the bottom of the range here and got a nice lift off of that one. So it's not breaking down or anything like that, but it is a pretty persistent downtrend here. So a lot of buying in there. It's probably just gonna be a grind lower. There's some upside here, but it's more of a. If you're a collector. Then that price isn't really the worst thing in the world right now. So we're currently we're sitting at $90. So not the end of the world by any means here. So there's some upside to that one. If you're a flipper, then you have your exit right around the top of that range, and you have to be pretty quick because once it hits there, it's usually kind of a one-off. I think I just stepped on one of my kids' toys here, and that truck is going to make some sound. So hopefully you don't hear it, but I can hear it, and that's how it goes here. One of the other big risers was the 79 OPG Wayne Gretzky in a PSA 1. Its value is sitting at $924. All right, the offending vehicle was a Paw Patrol helicopter, and it has unfortunately met an untimely demise with a sudden crash, and so. But now we have peace and quiet. So anyways, top of the range for the PSA 1, Wayne Gretzky, $924 here. So risk reward is unfavorable for the near term. This is a consolidation. Who knows which way it goes? I'm not going to pretend. We're just outlining risk reward. What are the probabilities? What's the, if you can pick out a certain pattern here, then you can kind of, say, all right, the probability is higher or lower. But when you're sideways, like the market hasn't really made up its mind. And right now your risk reward is unfavorable if you're looking for that particular card. Then you likely wait. Although there's been a lot of buying in this area here, it led to a small pullback. And if it gets to the bottom of the range, it snapped up pretty quickly, so you'll have to be you'll have to be quick on that one here. Dave Winfield. So we're looking at some of the vintage cards overall here, and Dave Winfield with a monster move up. I forget the percentage on it, but I mean you can see bottom of the range, boom, top of the range here. So you don't even need to draw lines on this one, just to say, if you've been watching this long enough, say you've run out of buyers here. That's somebody thinks that's the price, and there's a whole lot of people that think that's the price here. So if you're looking for a beautiful example of St. Paul's own Dave Winfield, $231 is probably not the price you'll have to pay for it if you are patient. All right, Bob McAdoo in that vintage category as well, with a nice rip, $300 card, and it's pretty darn toppy here. So I think if you're really patient, you probably get a better price. Again, with these big gaps up, there's no market memory here. So when you start to get into this area, there aren't a lot of people, if you've bought a card before, you say, all right, I remember this thing at $100, and it gets up to $200, and it's like, I'm waiting for $100. There's nobody that remembers any prices in here. And so typically when you get in, you don't have buyers waiting for that price, and it drops back down. So we'll see how it plays out. Someone's trying to recapture this area of buying here. Someone thought that was a heck of a deal, and it was, in the short term here, but maybe just be a retest of this area here as buying is starting to dry up a bit here. So if you're looking for that 73 tops Bob McAdoo, I think if you're patient, you'll get a better chance at some point here. All right, and I just wanted to throw this in here. This is kind of the pre-war thing. I was just checking out what was in that index, because there was a few posts showing some modern cards in Card Ladder's pre-war index, and looks to be an oversight. Quickly corrected, but Cap Anson, that's a big name here. Doesn't come up for sale very often. The last one was in May. Previous one was in December. But some of these higher end cards that don't go for they don't come out very often, and people are willing to pay for those, and so that's right around its all-time highs. All right, we'll get into some baseball here, and I'm covering up a little bit. It's not important here, so. Mike Trout, you had your range 2,500 to 3,000. It's broken down to slightly below $2,000, and came back to the top of the range. Like, no, this is your new range. You're at the top of the range, and now you're at the bottom of the range here. The trend is down, and he's an all-star. He's having a good season. People just aren't that darn interested, and that's what this is about here. This isn't about Mike Trout being one of the all-time great players or anything like that. As our friend Carlos would say, one of the best ever. What it is more about is what's the psychology behind this? What are people doing? Thinking about this card? Is there more buying pressure, more selling pressure? Basically, is what that is. And so we've got our moving average, convergence, divergence. That momentum is still down, but the bands are very close, and so you would expect just to grind lower. And that's what typical bear markets do. They just wear you out more than anything. You don't have these big. These huge drops or anything like that. Well, you have the huge drop, but you're just like, okay, this is just steady, and it's just a persistent drop, and it's annoying more than anything. So your sideways consolidation, continuing the downtrend. See if we can get a pop here. Clearing this downtrend line would be a nice sign for Mike Trout and the baseball market as a whole. But as it stands, this downward compression, you do favor lower prices, but that's not a guarantee by any stretch here. So we'll see how that plays out. Shohei Ohtani having himself a heck of a month here, really, and just another great season. His pitching is almost better than his hitting this year. Last year's hitting, his home runs at least, were really amazing, and this year you've got the pitching kind of taking front and center. But he's in the All-Star game as a DH and a pitcher, and what he does, continues to be pretty incredible stuff here. This is his Bowman Chrome in a PSA 10, $500 card. Again, persistent downtrend. We're starting to break out of that, hit a pretty decent level of support, and now we're getting a little kick out of that zone here. So we have had a fake break before, but now we're seeing a few more buys here. So might say that we could see some more upside out of this card. If you are looking, here's what I do with this kind of stuff. I don't want to pay $500 for a Shohei Ohtani card, all right? But what I'll look at is there's demand picking up for Shohei Ohtani cards, so some of those lower price cards could start to outperform. Like if this one starts to perk up, then people trade down to those lower cards, and we could see some of those, the tops update or whatever, start to go up as people trade into to lower price stuff here. So, hey, speaking of tops update, here's his rookie debut. Seems like this is kind of the preferred version now because he's a really good hitter, and this is the hitting version of it, and his other cards are the pitching version. So, pretty decent level of support here, and you're starting to get a few kick saves off of that one. So, it'll be interesting. We've looked at this one before, and this was our sell. So now we're getting to an area where it's like, all right, take a look at this card now, I think. And again, the trend is still down, but there's a lot of buying in this area. It's starting to get to an area where when it does get down to this, what is that, the $80 price or something like that? I don't know what that number is. It gets picked up pretty quickly. So trend down, but it's getting snapped up quickly, which is kind of what you want to see. And if we start to get some more persistent buying, then we can get a move to the top of the range, which is not insignificant. Currently sitting at 120 bucks. That's, yeah, what is that? It must be like 80 or whatever. But yeah, you could see, that's, what is that, $200? I don't know if it gets there or not, but that's kind of the upper end of the range here. And if he has a good All-Star game and finishes strong, then who knows? Maybe that's the thing here. Vlad Guerrero, he's an All-Star as well. So for the longest time, he was hanging on to the support, but he broke that. And so if you paid attention, you wrote down notes, and you had your line in the sand, then you've been out. But now he's traveling lower, and again, there's not a lot of buying in here. So your next area of support, travels down, and this is probably, it's not guaranteed by any stretch here, but it looks like it wants to make its way decently lower here. So Vlad, top 10, 12 player on the season here, but that's not good enough, buddy. So that's the 2019 Chrome Refractor in a PSA 10. We could see that $212 card, could see that around 120, 130 bucks or something like that. So we shall see, but the trend is down until it isn't. Juan Soto, nothing wrong with Juan Soto. He's having a different year for him. Batting average on balls in play is extremely low, but if you look at the contact and all that kind of stuff, he's doing what he typically does. He's got an amazing walk rate, lower, he walks more than he strikes out basically. And he's hitting the ball hard, with not much of a launch angle. So we'll see if he has, this last week he's recovered his launch angle. So we'll see if the home run derby once again corrects him. We know the drill at this point. Slower first half. It's an under the hood first half. It's never that slow. He does well, but he doesn't have a lot of support this year. Josh Bell's been all right, but that second half he's able to turn it on and turn in that typical Juan Soto season. Now he's banked a lot of at bats that aren't going to help his average overall. So at the end of the day, it may not be a typical Juan Soto season, but I think people are just kind of like, we get the long-term prospects of this guy. He'll be a Yankee in a few years, maybe. And so now you've hit a pretty decent level of support, and it's starting to pick up just a little bit again. So I'll save you the 12-minute, 15-minute videos on is it time to buy Juan Soto, giving you the case, the fundamental case. Yeah, he's awesome. There it is. There's your 12-minute video. What I will do is give you the risk-reward setup. And so right now, basically 170 bucks is his current price. Just below that is your support. So you don't want to be in below that. But right now, these prices curling up looks interesting enough here. So this consolidation, as long as you're in it was fine, but as soon as it breaks, that's got to be about it. But there's been, again, so persistent buying. It just sneaks up on you. It's like a slow death, death by 1,000 cuts or something like that. It just, you buy these cards and like, okay, I lost a few percent, that's fine, nothing bad, not these 20-25% drops or anything like that. And then eventually it's like, oh, I'm down that 25% anyway. So Juan Soto Pink Refractor PSA 10. Here's your support level. Here's your previous lows. Was that 2021 or something like that? There you are again. Anyways, and they're starting to tick back up here. So that PSA 10 is going to cost you $900. So maybe able to get a price lower in a raw or a 9 or whatever, but that's starting to pick up just a little bit. And again, this is kind of the likely area for that to happen. And so there you go. If you're looking for that card, there it is. So Ronald Acuna Jr., he's an all-star. So fans voted, and that's how it goes sometimes. So this is the refractor in a PSA 10, $207. I think we're going to try and make its way down to 175. I don't know for sure, but this is a weird stopping place should that happen. And so that 175 area may come into play if you are patient. And Trey Turner, I don't buy a lot of cards in the in season. If it's lower dollar or whatever, that's fine. But some of the bigger names, I don't do a ton. That's my off season, preseason. I do my homework there and I try and buy then. And then when you get into the season, it's all about the top handful of players that are doing well. So Trey Turner's doing well, but his cards aren't reflecting it and getting a lot of the love. So this is a player that I am actively buying. There's a couple of them, and Trey Turner is one of those. And so if you're looking for a raw 2014 Bowman draft, and this is the refractor autograph, $100 roughly is the price there. And so I don't know, maybe it goes lower. Maybe you can get it for, but the way he's going, I'm not sure about that. Really having another terrific season. It's been really great for the past few years, and maybe we'll do a spotlight on him. But for my money, this is a player that I'm still willing to pick up in season. All right, got some football here. Tommy Brady, Tommy Terrific here. It was a while ago. I said, hey, here's a problem here, and it's just been a pretty persistent downtrend for the most part. And now you're coming up onto support. You're getting into an interesting area. You could still have another $1,000 of downside for the most part, but it looks like football is getting closer to a potential bottom. Rather than more so than some of the other sports, but again, it's kind of player specific here. So Tom Brady, if you want the BGS 9.5, it'll be half of that, and I think the Raws are right in there as well. So maybe an interesting look. If you're looking for that card, your patience may be rewarded in the very near term. Peyton Manning, zero love for this guy. I don't get it. So it continues to compress lower. A lot of buying again, death by 1,000 cuts, and we're filling this gap area here. So we'll see, but I think it maybe continues lower. And I don't do a lot of football, but this is a card I would certainly pick up, but I think I can get it at a lower price if I continue to be patient here. Patty Mahomes, Prism Silver. This is a raw version here. Continues to grind lower. It just doesn't look like it's done a whole lot here, but from a high price of $3,000, you're currently sitting at, what is that? $633. That's not insignificant by any stretch here. That's a big move, and so it continues to grind lower. And if you wait for a breakout, and I think there's a pretty good decent support here coming up on that as well. So maybe leaks into here a little bit here, but wait for a break of that trend, and I think you'd be all right there. Josh Allen base raw 2019 Prism. Really kind of getting towards the top of its range, and again, it's crazy in the little bit longer term chart here. So it's all-time high price, $237, currently sitting at 174. It's like that's still percentage-wise a decent drop here. So it's risk reward. Fine. There's a lot of buying in here, but it gets much higher. It gets very thin. Not a lot of people willing to step in and buy here. So if you're buy it if you're a collector, I suppose here. But don't expect monster moves out of it until it breaks out of that range one way or another. Kyler Murray, $128 for that PSA 10 off of a high from $1,000. So $1,000 card down to $128. That's a big loss there. So it's been grinding lower. A lot of volume, fortunately. Not really a whole lot of support here. This is very thin, and so you just have to use the recent lows and mark that as your risk reward here. It wants to break out, but it's back in the zone here, so that trend remains down until it doesn't. All right, and Aaron. PSA 9, this is his Topps Chrome Raw, so it's a high of $1,600, sitting at about $600 now. So again, that's a pretty, doesn't look like much, but that is a decent move, broken uptrend, and perhaps it can find some support in this area. We'll see it starting to curl up with a lot of buying activity. I mean, that's actually kind of thin, but there's a lot of interest at this price here. So a breakout of this zone would be nice, and maybe retest that. And I don't know about getting to the highs rapidly or anything like that, but your risk reward is clearly marked at this point, and it seems like there's a lot of interest in Aaron Rodgers picking up here. And if you look at the football index as a whole, the volume is starting to pick up a little bit, it looks like. And so that's what you really want. You want a lot of interest, and if that volume leads to some higher prices, I mean, a lot of volume on the downside, no good. But if these things are flattening out and curling up a little bit with a decent amount of buying, I mean, that's a good sign here. So maybe football is ready to go here. Jalen Hurts, silver raw, $84 card, not an expensive card. And the downtrend's been broken. It's traveling up here and sitting at the bottom of its zone here. So if you're looking for this card, that's a good risk reward. However, be aware that this is very thin trading here. These prices get beat around pretty good. I think it's raw, so there's a lot of condition things that could be going on there as well. But one sale could push it down to $50 or $60. But for now, the charts will say, hey, if you find a good condition card that seems like a decent enough price, but you're probably not able to manage your risk a whole lot here. Again, the next sale could easily come in back into this $50, $60 area or whatever that is. So we shall see what happens. But the nice thing is it is a lowish dollar value card, and so again, that's where percentages kind of throw them out the window here. 10-20% move, it's like, okay, I get it, yeah, that means something. But on an $80 card, it's like, someone can come in at $65 and not mean a whole lot. So especially with the raw. So entertainment index has been a steady climb and then a monster rip, and then especially lately with a lot of the Marvel Star Wars cards, an absolute rip. And the things that go up the most do tend to come back the fastest here. We're starting to see that potentially happen here. There's some buying in here, and so people that missed out on the way up start to see these things as, hey, this is a pretty good deal here. And it may not be. I mean, it could just be, you know, a slow decline all the way, and people buying all the way down. So we've seen that before as well. So we'll see how that works out. But one of the bigger risers here is the Silver Surfer in a PSA 10 1990 Marvel Universe. So again, not a lot of action on this one here, but heck, that's a breakout that counts. So and Charizard in the Pokemon sitting at the bottom of its range here. So a pretty persistent downtrend. Now you've got a lot of consolidation sitting at the bottom of its range. One of these days it'll break up or down for the most part because you just run out of room. But for now, bottom of the range risk reward sets up kind of favorably. And we'll do a few real world charts here. So again, sports cards I think go along with they go along with the market psychology. What's happening in real life does affect sports cards for the most part here. And so if people are getting hammered in real life and inflation, you know, plenty of people talked about that. We've talked about it here. It's fine. We don't need to harp on that. But if people are getting hammered on their 401ks and things are just going south, you know, sports cards go to the back of the mind. But if things start to really pick up and go well, people are feeling good about themselves. So that's where the consumer sentiment comes into play. Then you could start to see some really nice moves in the collectibles markets overall. So I prefer to look at things on an individual basis, but for the most part, you know, you have to pay attention to the sentiment as well. So this is the U.S. dollar, and the dollar's been ripping lately. And so when a dollar gets stronger, it makes everything else cheaper, right? So your prices on a lot of other stuff go down, which isn't good, doesn't feel good. So stocks, especially, you know, the 401k, maybe it's your biggest asset. But if we look at these things, you know, 2014 we had a 20% consolidation correction, and that, you know, the dollar hitting the top of this range marked the top. 2017 the same thing. Near the end of 2018, 2019, and then you had your COVID crash or whatever in 2020. That has marked the peak for the dollar and the bottom for the markets overall. So I'm not saying that happens again, but it's like, all right, if this thing reverses just a little bit, comes back in, then we could start to have a decent rally in some sports cards in the markets overall. So I think it's important to look at a bunch of different markets and see how it goes here. Bitcoin. And this is one of the riskier assets in there, but I think a lot of people are speculating in the markets, probably speculating in this as well. And so it's hit its first level of support here around that $20,000 area. $15,000 comes in as maybe your final area. I think you see a lot of heavy buying there should it get there. But right now you could see a little bit of a bounce here, and you can see people are willing to step in and buy at this area here. So again, there could be it'll be a 25% drop overall, but I think then maybe that's where a lot of people will start to step in. We shall see. And the XLF Financial is one of the most interest rate sensitive pieces of the market here. So, you know, longer term, we've had breakouts in the past here, but now it's starting to hit you know, when things break out, they tend to retest. We're starting to see that retest overall with a decent bounce here. So we'll see how that plays out. But if financials can get going, then, you know, typically they benefit from moves in the interest rate market, you know, higher or whatever. But again, they're more sensitive to the markets and economics in general. So if those start to get going, I think people will have a little bit better you know, confidence going forward, something like that. I don't know. In the Qs, all right, this is the one that I really want to show. So again, people that are aggressive are investing in technology, semiconductors, things of that nature, the Bitcoins of the world, but also the technology of the world. A lot of those high flyers, little fake breakout at the top of its range here, but we're coming into that first area of support. And so longer term, again, maybe there's a little bit more downside, but gosh, this is worth a bounce at least. And so we shall see how that plays out. Momentum looks terrible still here, but we'll see how it plays out. But if, again, the real markets get going, then people will feel on paper at least that, you know, hey, doing well, I've got more money, and maybe they'll be more willing to pay into the card market and get those things start going again. But I think it starts here. So, all right. Anyways, that's what I got for you. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of the weekend, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.